Miguel Sanchez, which is also a great Simpsons reference. If that is not your name, or if it is your name, then it isn't a great Simpsons reference. Hi, Dutch and James. I would love to hear Dutch's thoughts on when Jesse Ventura tried to get the WWF talent, and by extension wrestling talent in general, to unionize prior to WrestleMania 2. Jesse Ventura always talks about it quite passionately and believes that the locker room missed out on a huge opportunity by not being more keen to get behind the idea at a time when they probably had the most power and influence to make it actually happen. Now, Miguel here asks, did you hear of Jesse Ventura's sort of, trying to capitalize on this before WrestleMania 2? Did you hear about that when you were in whatever company you were in at the time?
I heard about it. The whole business kind of heard about it. But the big talk, the big talk back in those days was a union was almost, it was good to talk about it, but in practical application, it would not have worked. Because wrestling, it's like anything else, unless your top talents would go along with it, it's not going to work. They don't give a shit if a bunch of first match up to fourth match, fifth match guys, they don't give a crap if those guys want to unionize, because you could replace them with one phone call.
Do you, I'm sorry to interrupt, but do you know who Jesse blames on diming him out to Vince McMahon?
Hogan?
Hulk Hogan, yeah. So that goes perfectly with your point. Unless the main event stars or the big stars of the company are willing to get behind it, then it's never going to get off the ground. And Hogan himself, who was making the most money, had the least to gain from a union.
That's right. So unless your top talents all join forces as a force, I mean, as a united group, and they go in there and with Vince and say, we want this, 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 and you have such and such a time to give it to us or we're walking. I guarantee you, every one of them could have walked back in those days. Even Hogan could have walked. But you still got 300 million Americans to pick from. I'm sure by the next TV, you just bring some guys in and you start rebuilding, because it's not going to work. It's not. I mean, we could have used a union because some of the trips they sent us on, really, if we had a notified OSHA, you know what OSHA is?
No.
It's a company, a government agency, occupational safety hazard agency. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're working on a construction site and they want to send you up without the harness and all this stuff up, I mean, you could turn them into OSHA and they get fined. OSHA, we could have turned a lot of wrestling companies in for sending us on these long trips without a stopover or not paying you for it, or because it was dangerous. It was dangerous not only to the guys traveling, but to other people on the road. Yeah, I've heard about that wrestling union for years and years and years, and I've tried to tell people there's no way it could have worked. And I think that worked actually against Jesse Ventura, because Vince doesn't want a union, and the people in Atlanta didn't want a union. Say Memphis. Memphis didn't want a union. So, I mean, what that would have done because nobody, I don't even think it would have worked if you got everybody to go along with it.
Yeah, but look who was the top star in Memphis, the co-owner, Jerry Lawler.
He's not going to do it. Mm-hmm. He's making all the money anyway.
Is that a reason why, I mean, obviously the biggest reason to make, your top star a co-owner of your territory? Obviously, you don't want them to leave. You want them to homestead the territory so you can continue to make money with them. But do you think there's another reason to stop a union like this happening as well?
Take Lawler in Memphis, for example. I think he was actually afforded more fear of him leaving than what was necessary, because he was over because of the TV of Channel 5. That's why he was over. But if he was all of a sudden gone from Memphis, it'd take him a while. It'd take him 3 to 6 months to rebuild somebody. But pretty soon, business would almost be back to, maybe not to sellout stage, but they wouldn't be losing any money. I mean, what would you do if Lawler had a wreck and he got killed? You'd have to rebuild him. So if he quit because of a union, he'd have to get him another TV station in Memphis, and he'd have to find a bunch of other 20 or 25 other wrestlers to fill in. He'd have to find announcers. He'd have to do this. He'd have to do that. And he didn't want to work that hard to do it. I don't blame him. But it would, I don't even think of, I used to laugh at guys who say, man, we need a union. And I went, yeah, whatever. And I wouldn't even talk about it. And they would say, well, you're the reason we're not going to get one. I said, no, I'm not the reason. I'm actually seeing the reason that it's not going to work. And we're all going to get fired. So I don't know about you, but I don't know if I get fired promoting a union or advocating for a union, I'm not making any money. And if I'm not making any money, I'm just, if I've lost that time is gone. I'll never get it back. So that union talk was just talking at your butt.